Greetings, sir and sirettes, and welcome back to From the Depths with me, Lathrix, and of course, welcome back to the Abaddon in the sandbox mode. And welcome to my newest creation. Since we have the Abaddon, which is essentially a converted and slightly upgraded version of the Scarab, I thought to myself, why don't we try to build a vehicle from each of the factions we are conquering or have conquered? So this is my first ever attempt at replicating the Chaos. Of course, we do have the limitation of only having the 2,000 block limit, so it has been very, very difficult, but this is the first prototype, nowhere near the finished design, but it really hurts. Because it has two weapons, whereas the Chaos only has one, it tends to be a little bit more reliable in doing its damage, but sadly it doesn't quite have the range of the Chaos, nor does it have the extreme tankiness. But for a prototype, I'm very, very happy. Where did that bison just spawn in? Over there. Once again, just like in the last video, hello from the future, but this time, we're not going to spoil how the vehicle ends up, because honestly, it takes a few weird turns. Anyhow, I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who liked the previous video, the previous From the Depths. I have never had so many likes and so many comments within the first 24 hours of posting a video before. It really is heartwarming, and I just want to say I'm so appreciative of everyone who did that. Thank you so much. I literally just checked at the end of this video, and I just want to say thank you, really. It's a massive help, and it's going to help out a lot with the insanity that YouTube is currently pulling. So, just thank you. And back on with the video. There we are, that was better. So it took 2 hits. Oh well, the bison is now defeated, and our little version of the Chaos goes off into the sunset. Please stop. So I haven't actually looked at the Chaos yet. I am still refusing to spawn it into the sandbox mode to figure out how certain things work. So I've guessed how certain elements are functioning. So up here we can see these 3 automated control blocks. We have one which activates when the enemy is within 200 meters, which causes the 2 weapons to start spinning. We then have the second one, which if there's no enemies within 200 meters, or there's just no enemies full stop, it will then stop spinning, and the final one which returns it to this stationary position, because honestly it just looks far better, and it's far more streamlined. It's kind of weird how things on spin blocks are actually affected by air resistance and drag in this game, but I'm going to assume, possibly incorrectly, that they are indeed affected by things like that. I did try to use the land AI for a very long time, and I could not get it to work in the way the Chaos seems to act. So I've gone for an aerial AI, so technically speaking, this thing does actually think it's a flyer. And we could actually turn it into a flyer incredibly easily, but let's pretend that's not the case, and it actually thinks it's a tank. Most of the speed does come from the excess amount of wheels we are using. We have wheels all the way along both of the sides for massive amounts of redundancy. We then have a fairly weak PID system, keeping this thing stable. The one concern I do have is the turn rate of this craft is definitely not as good as the Chaos. But saying that, it does go at least double the speed, so perhaps that's one of the reasons. It could also be a reason why it keeps on flipping the targets and getting underneath them, rather than simply going through them like the Chaos does. The Chaos is both heavier and slower, so it grinds the enemy rather than rams them. This one rams them more than grinds them. So what we're going to do is slow this thing a lot down and see if that makes any difference. I'll also turn off a lot of the wheels in the midsection, so hopefully we can go down to maybe 40-50 meters per second rather than just shy of 100. Also after this, I am going to make a really large Cram cannon tank, which will be our version of the Onyx Watch. We're going a little bit crazy today in terms of designs. Or perhaps next episode. We'll see how long this takes to perfect. Okay, we've gone a little bit further than I originally intended, and now it's only moving at 32 meters per second. Let's see if there's any difference when it hits the bison. And let's see how good the turning is if it doesn't kill it straight away. That looks so slow because how long this vehicle is. On the Krull, this actually looks like a decent speed. Okay, this is definitely too slow in its struggling to even do damage. It has killed it, however, without going underneath it, so technically speaking, the really, really slow version with far less thrust is actually killing the enemy faster. Interesting. And has got stuck on the debris, because nowhere near enough thrust. I've just had an idea and ended up cutting quite a little bit of footage there. I ended up testing several different speeds, and I came to the conclusion that around about 45 meters per second was definitely the most reliable. It tended to shred the enemy without knocking them around. Of course, occasionally the enemy flies into the air anyway, because of the explosive nature of their ammunition and their weapons, but that didn't happen because of the impact at least, so it became far more reliable. But straight after doing that, I had an idea. Why don't we simply have a control block, this lovely control block here, which is set so when the enemy range is less than 300, let's actually put the 300 in correctly, shall we? If we turn on numlock, there we are, we turn our thrusters down to drive faction 0.4. This way we can have the maximum speed of 100 meters per second, but once we reach the target, or at least get close enough, we slow down so that our turning is better, and that we can reliably shred the enemy, rather than bouncing them around like a bouncy ball. Also, if I add a couple more of these, I can also set it so once the enemy then is far enough away, it turns back to full. So this one would be, if enemy range is more than, was it 300 I just put it as? Then we have the drive faction set to maximum. Okay, let's see how this does.
Turning off.
This isn't a test of our durability, there's no point in allowing the enemy to fight us back. I will, however, have to eventually test with the enemy moving around, so I'll probably just make my own craft for that, which doesn't have weapons but tries to dodge at all costs. Okay, we have slowed down, but not fast enough. Oh, definitely better than the first one, though. No, too much of an impact, it ended up bouncing us both. Another problem, of course, is we are nowhere near as heavy as the Chaos, because we simply don't have enough volume to do that, so we are more liable to bounce around. Though, we didn't go underneath the target, so I think I'm onto a good idea here. There we go, it's now dead, so it can bounce away all at once. So I think I am onto a good idea, I'm just not sure how to implement this properly. I am still resisting looking at the Chaos, which I'm sure a lot of you are very annoyed about right now. So it seems like I had a little bit of a derp moment there. One thing I didn't even consider is that if we do slow down the vehicle, in terms of the entire vehicle, then we are also slowing down the turning thrusters, which are our main way of turning at the moment. We do also have turning wheels, which I don't believe are affected, but even so, it's not really something I want to see when our main problem is not being able to turn fast enough, in addition to not being able to reliably shred the enemy. So, let's see how we do like this. I've localized some of the settings, so they should keep on turning at the normal speed. So there we are, slowing down, the weapon is out, and we stopped spinning. Why? What? Oh, AI dead. Oh, that's why we actually killed the enemy. There's me thinking that the weapon broke. Nope, we just killed the enemy that fast. Let's spawn in a Hexer as well to test out this. I will have to add some form of ranged weaponry to this. I would add a Cram cannon, but trying to get the recoil low enough that this thing doesn't go flying off to the side would be far, far too difficult. Okay, we have definitely slowed down, and there we are. That is... oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, that's what I wanted to see. Utterly and completely shredded, and then removed. Now, in terms of continuous damage, spin blocks with rams on them don't do continuous damage in the way you would think, so it's never going to be that consistent, because it does count as being just a solid object, not the moving object, because the developer does want the use of The drill, which is true continuous damage. The thing is with the spin blocks is it does add speed to the ramming process, which was removed, then re-added, then removed again, then added back very weirdly, which I'm still not 100% certain about, but it does add a lot of benefits. Also, of course, having the weapon so far out means that explosions tend to hit the weapon, which is pure heavy metal, rather than the rest of the chassis, which also happens to be heavy metal in this case, but even so, it does house some rather vulnerable sections, especially since all of this is weapon, and only this small section back here is the actual tank segment. Okay, I got far too curious. We are about to attack a Beholder. This is the other very large vehicle of the White Flyers, but it's of course not the Chaos. The Chaos is the one we still have issue with, and the one I will not look inside of. The Beholder, we've actually killed so many times now, I no longer see it as a major threat, just a very good vehicle. How did we just do EMP damage? Neither craft is bouncing, we're doing loads of damage. Once again, EMP damage, not sure what's going on there, perhaps I'm destroying something of theirs. Oh, if they have Cram cannons with EMP pellets or something like that, that could be the cause of that, not really too certain. And now we're underneath it regardless. Bye, Beholder! Bye, knockoff version of the Chaos! Send a postcard. After a very long time, the Beholder finally got classed as being too damaged, so this probably isn't going to work against incredibly large enemies, but against smaller enemies, let's have a quick test against the Ravager, I feel like we're going to do just fine. Once again, we're not testing durability because even our control blocks are currently on the outside of the vehicle. This is merely a proof of concept. Ooh, a really aggressive proof of concept. So that time, there was nothing I could have done to prevent that thing from flying in the air. Simply too much detonation with far too small a hull. It would have flew up regardless how slowly or quickly I hit it. All I'm trying to avoid is... Ooh, that actually did a lot of damage to our thing. All I'm trying to avoid is the damage being dealt from the impact, causing it to fly into the air because of the increased speed. Either way, though, I think I am now officially happy enough, so what I'm going to do is work on the entire vehicle now to make it a permanent addition, try to make it look a little bit more pleasing to the eye, and add some form of ranged weapon. It's probably either going to be, and I know you're all going to hate me for this, missiles, but perhaps using, where are you, the winch, of course, which goes with the harpoon, so we can drag ourselves in, which I don't think will work very well, but oh well. Missiles which use EMP to stop the enemy from firing at me before I hit it, or we could try for a Cram cannon. We have done this in the past, and it actually worked out really well on the Krull. I just don't know if it'll work well on this, because this is far less stable. A small minigun would also work very, very well, going with either armor-piercing or frag shells. But it would be nice to use a Cram cannon, because that way we're doing two new things. An AI-driven melee vehicle, which also uses a weapon I'm not used to. Ooh, actually... Okay, so here's a thought. We don't need to put it on a turret. We could have the top section here basically shaved off, and then make all of this here and a little bit of the inside a stationary Cram cannon that can only fire forwards. It does mean this craft cannot fight aircraft at all, but it does also mean we can have a very heavily defended Cram cannon, which wouldn't cause too much recoil problems, because it's only ever going to fire forwards and a little bit to the left or right. The more I speak about it, the more I like that, so back in a second once I've decided. Incoming Happy Shells! One shot, one kill. Well, two shots, but from the same turret. You get the general idea. Okay, that wasn't that bad, especially considering this isn't an overly huge cannon. So let's try out against something a little bit bigger, shall we? Let's go with a Bison. It seems like the Bison are my go-to test vehicle at the moment. After this, we'll test out against the bear. I'm really hoping this turret will be good enough, because it's not that big, it's not taking up much volume, and it's not that expensive. Cram cannons can be very expensive when you're placing them. Thankfully, they use up very little ammo, but the gun itself is expensive. Okay then. You appear to be missing your backside. In fact, you're dead as well. So, 2 for 2, one-shot kill. Ignore salvage. I may have been messing around with the AI. So, last test, Steel Empire, let's go with the bear. The bear is quite a well-defended vehicle. Bear, there we are. Hello. Did it die? How did that not die with such a huge gaping hole in it? Seriously though, that's apparently alive. I'm guessing the AI must be near the back. Where is the... oh, there it is. Yep, right at the back. No wonder it survived. Very, very slow fire rate. It can only shoot once every 19 seconds. That isn't that good. But for a very small weapon, like I was saying, and just for the sheer fact that it's a turret, not a stationary weapon, so it can fire at everything around it, I think this is okay. I think this is good enough. Here we are then, back at the vehicle, and this is the turret. So, as you can see, we have 2 cannons on a single turret. We have mostly explosive pellets, because honestly, I don't really care too much about the fire rate, I just want a decent bit of damage. The overall reload time is 19.1 seconds, and the shell diameter is 1,519. So, overall, a fairly cheap, fairly small cram cannon, and it does well, so... I'm happy enough to say that will be the main ranged weapon. Will it be the only ranged weapon? Probably, because we are running out of volume very quickly. So now to give it a turret cap, to seal all this back up, and to re-add the turning thrusters, hopefully a little bit more hidden. At that point, we're almost done. The cannon fires, and... scores a fairly nasty direct hit. We've now straightened up against the target, and the melee weapon should activate now. Which does knock the opponent flying, which is a little bit annoying, but I think it has killed it. Yes, it has, as was indicated by the fact the melee weapon stopped spinning. Nice, simple, easy, incredibly effective, and incredibly brutal. Still think I'm going a bit too fast. Since I've reduced a lot of the drag and reduced a lot of the weight, I think I may need to lower the propulsion systems a little bit more upon getting within 300 meters of the enemy. It's still on 0.5 now, since that was part of the testing I've probably cut out. I think we should put it down to 0.3 to avoid that bounce when it first hits the target. Let's try out versus a brush cutter, because why not? All the way over there. Turning could still do with a bit of work, perhaps internal blades. Sadly, the brush cutter was killed by the cannon, but I did see a few problems. The PID system wasn't working as intended, and some of the thrusters at the back were far too low, causing havoc with its centre of mass. So hopefully now this thing can turn a little bit more stably. So once again, let's spawn in a couple of brush cutters, so that the cannon can't kill both of them. We're turning a lot sharper now, which is also sacrificing a bit of speed, which is fine for such a sharp turn. The roll actually worked that time, and we are staying fairly close to the ground. Did the shell miss? Because that seems fairly intact. Also, random frame loss. The melee would have worked if the cram cannon didn't kill the enemy. Moving on to the next, much better turning this time. And that is perfect. Haven't yet added a failsafe. May have just detonated on myself. Okay, so the turret still needs a failsafe. Let's do that now before I forget again. Remember, kids, always use protection before firing your cannon. Oh, have I put this in a bad place? Yes, I have. There we are. Try that again. Also, don't put your cannon in bad places. There we are, okay, all good, and now we do indeed have a failsafe, so we won't shoot ourselves again like that. Doesn't help with other vehicles nearby, which are friendly, but certainly will help in that situation. We're also on rough terrain, and the front is pitching correctly as it should, along with the back. The roll is working, but this vehicle really isn't designed to deal with this type of terrain, as demonstrated by losing a little bit of armor on the side. Well, it's dealing with it better than it was a moment ago, but even so. Let's continue work. About 10 minutes later, and here we are. I think it's about time we call the episode. Overall, I'm actually really happy with my progress, considering this was more of an experiment, more of a proof of concept, and since I had the self-imposed handicap of not looking at the chaos by spawning it in on my side and simply taking it apart, I think I've done a very good job. It's just the way I tend to learn things. I learn through trial and error, and by looking at the chaos, I simply wouldn't have learnt very well. So here we are with the end result. If you have any name suggestions, then please in the comments below feel free to leave them. I will be looking at all of them. I have recently been looking at all of the name suggestions for our new jet plane, and wow, there are so many good ones, I actually don't know which one to pick. Normally it's a matter of not having one good name, but in this case, there's so many good names, I'm not sure which one I'm going to go with. And once I name a vehicle, I don't like renaming it, so I should hopefully have a name by the next video, but if I don't, the video after. Now in the next video, I will be building the Cram cannon tank, which should take far less time, and then hopefully either in that video or the next, we will be back in the campaign doing all sorts of combat. I've had a bit of a building itch at the moment, so that's why there's been so many building videos. I hope you understand. Now, as for this vehicle, to finish it off, what I'm going to be doing is adding shields and reworking the back section. At the moment, it looks a little bit patchwork, which I'm really not too happy with, considering the rest of the vehicle is very striking shapes, but overall looks somewhat smooth. The back here looks a little bit insane, so going to shorten it a bit, smooth it out into that section, and then hopefully it will look a lot better, especially since then we can add some shielding on the inside facing outwards, and everything will be nice and good. So, with that, thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed the video, then of course, likes, favourites, shares, comments, all that good stuff helps out me, helps out the channel, and most importantly, shows that From the Depths is a series you wish to see continued in the future. It's far too early in the morning now, and I'm going to finally go to sleep. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.